Blessed good morning and good day to everyone from the Caribbean and around the rest of the world. Thank you for being on the call. My name is Maureen Brown and I'm from Barbados. I am your host today. Just a reminder of why we're here. Our founder, Dr. Ruja, she just said it. We are learning today so we can lead tomorrow. What is One Academy? It is an innovative e-learning platform covering a broad range of financial topics, including trading, the stock exchange, cryptocurrency, financial analysis, asset management, and more. Our mission is to provide our students with the guidance and educational materials they need to achieve financial literacy. One Academy was developed by finance experts and academics. It's highly structured and easy to understand. You learn at your own pace and can be part of the future of global finance. Since the start of last week, we have adopted a new format of presenting One Academy. We will be continuing with level 1, and our intention is to give you a unique sense of understanding of straightforward facts that you can use immediately to enhance your daily lives as well as promote our core product, One Academy. The new format will be led by Larry Pereira, commonly, or we tend to call him Professor or Dr. Larry Pereira, but that's just a little affectionate thing we do among ourselves. So we do want to apologize to any of those academics who are on the call and they would have felt a bit aggrieved by us doing that. So I just want to make that clear. It was drawn to our attention. Our intention today is to have an interactive session, so please put your questions and comments in the chat box and they will be answered by Dr. Pereira. Also, we will allow 1 or 2 contributions at the end of the discussion unless otherwise told. I encourage you today to take copious notes to assist you in your quest to become certified, knowledgeable, and wise investors. And you just heard it on the video with Dr. Ruja, where she's saying that we need to get certified. Dr. Pereira, Larry Pereira, if you are ready, the call is
Yeah.
over to you.
Good morning. Good morning. Of course, the alias always gets to us. Of course, this alias title is courtesy of my good friend, Mr. Alvin Morton, who calls all of us doctors. And quite rightfully so. You know, whenever we acknowledge the fact within our own friendship over the years that we would have, you know, contributed something of value, he tends to do that. And hats off to you, Dr. Morton, which I always like to call him so affectionately as well. Of course, good morning, everyone. It's indeed a pleasure to be here once again in the land of the living. And of course, welcome One Academites wherever you are within the Caribbean and of course further afield, wherever you are, if you're in Europe, if you're in Africa, if you're in Asia, if you're in Japan. Good to have you on the call. Good morning, good day, even good afternoon. I want to bring to your attention this morning this unique, in my opinion, quote by Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was the 3rd president of the United States. And he actually was the president between 1801 and 1809. And therein was one of the principal contributors to the Declaration of Independence. For those who are aware of that, it's important for you to understand this because it's historically significant. And I'll explain to you why in just a minute. And Thomas Jefferson, at that time, laid the foundation. He was one of the forefathers, the foundational fathers of the United States, which went on to be truly a great nation. But of course, he made a very important point. In that time, in the 19th century, he already understood what could have been the dangers of having a Federal Reserve System moving forward, which unfortunately has now been initiated in the financial world in the US. And he said that paper is poverty. Now, this is a saying back in the 1800s. This is the 3rd president of the United States saying that paper is poverty. It is only the ghost of money and not money itself. And he went on to actually carve the document called the Declaration of Independence, all right? And this Declaration of Independence is very important because I really want to highlight this Declaration of Independence. I hope I can actually bring it up. on this slide right now so that you can see it. Very important point. This Declaration of Independence really has some words that I really wanted to highlight to you. And I'm going to highlight this to you now. It says that when the course of human events,
Excuse
it
me,
be
Larry.
yes.
Are we supposed to be seeing it? Because we're not. At least.
Oh, my apologies. I didn't put back on the share screen. Sorry about that. Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, so let me just reiterate this slide here. It says that paper is poverty. It is only the ghost of money and not money itself. This is Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States. And it's very interesting that he said this back in the 1800s. And 200 years into the future, plus years, we are still very much relevant with this saying that paper is poverty. It is only the ghost of money and not money itself. We have been taught to believe a lie. And this lie is that the paper that's in your pocket is money. And that is the ultimate deception of the world has ever been told. Yes, it is the red pill. It might be hard for you to swallow this morning, but it is what it is. When in the course of human events, and this is part of the document for the Declaration of Independence, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of the laws of God, the laws of nature and of nature's God, entitle them a decent respect to the opinions of humankind, requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. I just want to just read one more paragraph, and therein you will see what I really want to say. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form. I want to say to you, to remind you today, One Academites, wherever in this beautiful world that you are, that you're endowed with the life of the Creator, and that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is your sentient right. It is your birthright, and it is in your power through financial education to reject anything that your government or the governments of the world might put on your table. And that's why it's important to have this One Academy training. That's why you're on these calls, in the pursuit of happiness, in the pursuit of life, in the pursuit of liberty. It is your fundamental right as citizens of this world to enact that. And through the One Life Network, we are enacting that to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This morning, you're on this call to do just that. And I wanted to share this with you. This is part of the document. It's a fairly detailed document. It's called the Declaration of Independence, which was conceptualized by one of the foundational fathers, Thomas Jefferson. And Thomas Jefferson, if you would read Thomas Jefferson, spoke out a lot about the establishment of a Federal Reserve, the establishment of a unique system that's going to take away the power of humankind. And that's when it changed the financial system forever. And that's why now United States is going on a particular path that it cannot stop. And as a result of that, it is also affecting the world today. And that's why the world, and that's why you need to understand your perspective. And it's our job on these calls to really give you that global perspective. As we continue our ongoing presentation with the One Academy, we are in fact talking a lot about assets. We spoke a lot about general assets. So now what we really want to do is to clarify the categories of these assets. And we'll discuss this morning in the next 20 minutes so that you'll understand the 301 Academy manual. What are in fact these categories of assets that we were referring to? And one of them are commodities. We need to understand clearly what are commodities. How do commodities deal with inflation? Yesterday, we spoke a lot about inflation. We're going to be talking about cash and money equivalents. What is that? How does it affect us? Equities, which are normally usually corporate stocks and bonds, what it means, what is the risk associated with them, how you can actually use these instruments to create this diversified portfolio. And of course, regular investments, also known as fixed income investments, which are generally, if it's set up really well, you can actually get monthly, but in many cases, a quarterly return on your investment. So setting up portfolios to ensure that you do not have to work for money, but if you set it up right, that money now can in fact work for you. Because commodities are, in many respects, the raw material. It is considered things that are used in the production process to create goods and services, whether it be oil, whether it be corn, wheat, all of these things are considered commodities, right? Anything that eventually ends up on your kitchen countertop or you're used as a consumer is in fact commodities. And it started somewhere as a raw material. And these commodities play out in the world of finance today, in the forex market, in trading, in stocks and bonds, right? These are hard assets from wheat to gold to oil. And they are grouped into three major categories: agriculture, energy, and metals. So when dealing with commodities, commodities has three classifications: agriculture, energy, and metals. In the agricultural commodity section, it includes things that you drink, such as sugar, cocoa, coffee. You may be having coffee this morning, or some cases maybe tea. All of that is commodities. All of that would have created a product or products or services, rather, in which you enjoy as a consumer, as well as orange juice. These are called soft markets. Then we have the energy categories, which include crude oil, natural gas, RBOB, gasoline, and heating oil. RBOB gasoline is unleaded gasoline. That's really what it means. And of course, metals, which includes mined commodities such as gold, copper, silver, and platinum. And of course, soon in 2019, the London Metals Exchange has announced that it would launch futures contracts for metals used in batteries starting next year. So a lot of things happening in the world of commodities. So commodities is basically the raw materials that are used to produce goods and services that we, the consumers, benefit from. Of course, sugar, cocoa, coffee, all of those are commodities, apart from the harder ones like metals and so on. So commodities have three classifications: agriculture, energy, and so on. And metals, most importantly. So that's important for you to understand in terms of what needs to be done in the world of finance. Just hold 1 second. Good. Next, we have cash and money equivalents. We're going to just go through some of them in a little subheading, and then we're going to explain what all of this means. The term cash and cash equivalents, generally one academites, include currency, coins, checks received but not yet deposited, checking accounts, your petty cash savings accounts, money market accounts, short-term, or anything that's high liquid in investment with maturity dates and so on. That's really cash and money equivalents. Then we deal with equities. Of course, equities would be the stocks that you buy in the stock exchange, the shares of companies, and these represent ownership in the interest of a corporation. Of course, when you buy into a company, you don't own the company, but you are going to have certain rights and privileges based on the type of stock that you purchase. Of course, there are two types of stocks that you can actually receive. The most common one is regular stock, and the other one is preferred stock. Most persons do not have access to preferred stock. Preferred stock does not allow you to vote in shareholding meetings. However, you're the first to be paid if there is a problem with the company. Bonds also are a form of long-term debt. So when you're buying into bonds, you're literally buying into debt. And in most cases, governments do have bonds and treasuries and stuff. So you're buying into government debt. And if you're looking at the maybe considering purchasing bonds, you have to look at the economic risk. We talked about risk yesterday, systemic risk, all right, and economic risk or exchange risk, which is the component that affects currencies. You need to consider that first before even considering purchasing government debt, especially in your own country, because it may not work to your advantage. And of course, we deal with regular investments, mutual funds, which is a combination of stocks and bonds, and maybe ETFs, a combination of financial instruments that's actually created for the purpose of us investing to gain what? Income. The purpose of all of these financial instruments is to protect us. It is about hedging. So commodities represent one of the best ways in which we can hedge, because in general terms, even if you refer to your manual, it will say to you that once you understand commodities and you purchase commodities, it can in fact help buffer any uncertainties that may be taking place in the financial world. All right, so commodities are very important. So we would have dealt with the four general classes here, running back to your One Academy manual of commodities, cash and money equivalents, equities, and investments. Those are the four components that make up the asset classes that we talk about in terms of our portfolio management. But when we're looking at assets, we need to understand now what are some of the characteristics, the behavior. How does this pan out in the real scheme of things as it relates to my portfolio? And when we are looking at the characteristics of our asset classes, we need to consider a couple of things: the capability of the asset to bring returns, whether the asset is fluctuating in price, the interconnectedness with other assets within the given class. And of course, interconnectedness will also flow directly in line with liquidity. Would you be able to liquidate this asset when you really need it the most? That is also a consideration when you are investing and you're creating a diversified portfolio. And of course, dependence of market forces. Market forces are things that we cannot control, things that are happening outside of our physical control. And that's very important that we must understand. So while we understand the categories of the assets which we just spoke about, commodities and money and cash and stocks and bonds and all of that, we need to understand now the asset characteristics. Once we understand how these assets play out in the financial world, we now can put things in place so we now can benefit from the maximum returns that these assets will produce. Also bearing in mind that every single investment has risk. We must understand that everything in life has risk. Even life itself has risk. We all have to deal with situations and circumstances that are, in many cases, beyond our control. And I think that is very important. Now, when we're dealing with the investments of stocks and bonds, I want to really kind of group that understanding so you generally understand what stocks and bonds are. Most people know about stocks and bonds. They hear about it in the financial news, but they are not aware of how does this play out in terms of money management. All right. So this stocks and bonds, which is normally referred to as equities, all right, is actually a form of debt that is issued on part of the company, and in many cases, sometimes issued by governments as well. All right. You are actually becoming a shareholder, right? But not necessarily will you be included in the management of the company. So when you purchase stocks, right, meaning you do have a technical part ownership in the company, you do not have say in the company. You have say as it relates as a shareholder from a profit perspective, but the management component, you really don't have much say in it. All right. So not always the two separate bodies like management and investors will work together. All right. So managers work in the interest of the running of the company, but you being the shareholder or principal shareholders, your main role in the acquisition of stocks would be the performance of the stock, but you don't get involved as it relates to the performance. Now, as I've said before, there are actually two types of stocks, and we really need to understand the two types of stocks that are playing out here. It is regular stock or common stock, all right? And then we also have preferred stock. Regular stock is the stock that most of us will be buying when you go on an exchange. You buy into maybe your local companies that are listed on your local exchanges. You could buy into that. Of course, you could buy into international. You could buy Microsoft. You could buy into Apple. You could buy into many of those Fortune 500 companies, Amazon, and etc. Those are regular stocks. But when you buy that, you do have the opportunity to really participate in the voting process, in what constitutes voting. However, if you do have preferred stock does not give you the right to vote in a company. However, you are going to be the first to be compensated in the event that something happens monetarily to the company. So regular stock allows you the opportunity, but you're actually second place as opposed to preferred stockholders who will be paid first because they forego their right of voting, but they get more compensated as it relates to the process of the company. Now, with regards to investments with regular returns, there are many forms of investments on the market. So fixed income in terms of its amount and the time it is received, and some of them don't actually work in the way in which it should. But usually when we talk about investments with regular returns or fixed investments, what we're really describing is you are participating in the debt of a company or another institution. So the name derives from the fact that the issuer is bound or bound rather to repay a certain part of debt on a given date. That's generally what it is. And it's a bond is like that as well. In many cases, if you're buying bond from issued by governments, you are in fact buying into government debt. So the government becomes the issuer of the debt and is obligated to some extent, of course, to be able to pay out, whether quarterly or semi-annually or whatever is the terms and conditions of that bond for the next maybe 5 years, 10 or even 20 years. Of course, the longer the bond is held for, the riskier it becomes. And why it becomes riskier? Because we're dealing with economic risk. We're dealing with exchange risk. We're dealing with factors that may affect government's performance, government's GDP, which will in fact affect your returns. So you would normally find that short-term bonds will make more sense as opposed to buying into longer bonds, right? And that's something you really want to pay attention to. As a rule of thumb, the longer the maturity of the bond, the higher the income for the investor. Absolutely, it makes more sense because you're bearing more risk. The greater the risk, the greater the return on your investment. The lesser the risk, the less likelihood of your return on investment to a greater extent. All right, so this should be self-evident. And if you're unfamiliar with the possible shifts in the political landscape that can occur for such a long period of time, you need to factor that in. So that is also an important consideration when moving forward. So when dealing with the investments of cash or money equivalents, it's basically self-explanatory. Money is an instrument. Money, you can invest in money. That's what the Forex market is. You're investing in the return or the fluctuations of the bearish or bullish, buying or selling of currency on the international market. And of course, this is always based on the performance of the economy. So if you're dealing with your local scenario, it is definitely going to be based on the performance of your economy. But if you're going on a macro level, it's based on the global performance of the economy. So for those Forex traders that deal with technical and fundamental analysis, they already understand what that means. And in time, we will touch a little bit about what is technical analysis, and what is the benefits of understanding fundamental analysis. So whether you actively decide to become a trader or not is not the issue. It is important that you understand the terminology, the principles, the rules of conduct, how the game is played, most importantly. And once you understand how the game is played, you know how to play the game rather than having the game play you. And that's what happens to most of us. The game is actually playing us, and we are totally oblivious to that fact. And that's why due diligence is important in understanding these markets. We don't just follow the crowd or just buy a share into a company or shares simply because everybody else is doing it. In fact, if everybody else is doing something, you may need to do the opposite thing. You may need to sell if they're doing that or not participate in it at all. Of course, there are other asset classes that definitely work alongside with some of the principal assets that we spoke about. For instance, home ownership. But initially, you would have bought a home not for the purpose of investment, but you would have bought it for the simple reason of protection. Of course, you need a house. You're not going to sleep under a tree. So you definitely would need a house in order to do something like that in terms of to protect your family from volatility. And of course, in many respects, for volatility of the price of the movement of money and inflation. That's another component. It's like a side subcategory then as it relates to the main asset. Of course, home ownership is very important. Everyone should, in fact, aim at looking at home ownership. Of course, as Robert Kiyosaki would have said, for those who would have read Rich Dad Poor Dad, he said it long time ago, and a lot of people didn't understand it, and he actually came under the ridicule of bankers, which for obvious reasons he would. He said that your house is really not an asset. Now, many people who are involved in that field will tell you, but how is it not an asset? It's not an asset from the perspective that you have to maintain it. An asset is anything that gives you income. And that is the perspective he was using. So if you have a house and you're renting part of your house, it is an investment. Then it's paying for itself. But if you are paying the mortgage, if you have to pay everything that deals with the maintenance, dealing with the lawn management and all of these things, of course, that's a cost. So it's coming out of your pocket. So it's not putting money in your pocket as per se. So from that perspective, it is not an investment until you put somebody in that, maybe you have an apartment and you rent it out and you receive income. It's also a consideration moving forward when things drastically change with the One Life as it relates to the ICO process. Definitely, those are things you want to be able to put in play to be able to let money work for you. Because one of the challenges many persons are going to face with the new acquisition of wealth is that if you are thinking as an employee with the new acquisition of wealth, you are going to be broke in less than 2 to 3 years because you would be using your seed money and you're not putting it to work. Money can only be of value to you when it is invested. It's called the velocity of money. And it's critical that you understand what are some of the investments that you may want to consider moving forward. And that's why we're having this discussion, to start putting ideas into your mind, to start researching some of the things that you may want, a piece of land that you might be looking for in your country, maybe the acquisition of an apartment building so that you can have residual income moving forward. Because you don't want to think as a consumer, you need to think as an entrepreneur, as an investor. And that's why we're having these calls in the morning time. So housing, real estate, collectible items, even physical collection of metals like jewelry, which many of us have, precious metals, investments into funds, all of those are other subcategories that we can use and incorporate into our perspective. At the end of the day, what I want you guys to start doing is to start thinking along the entrepreneurial line. And that's where the deal shaker really comes in, to really allow you the opportunity, if you're not a business owner, if you're not into any form of business, to start the process now. It's actually free. You can sign anybody up as a deal shaker. If you already have an account with the One Life Network, you definitely already have access to the deal shaker. Then you can go on it and create a deal and allow the process where you can start using cash, euros in this case, as well as ones, cryptocurrency. So now you're merging the most amazing part of the financial evolution, cryptocurrency, and incorporating this into a global perspective business. So start thinking about something. If you provide services, write a book, put it online, expose it to 3+ million persons in this network, and expose yourself. That is the power of what the One Life Network really represents. So when we really look at the whole concept, moving back as we close this morning in terms of assets, it's very important to really understand what are the general classes. And I'm going to close off this morning with a recap in case you may have missed it, because sometimes our mind races off ahead of itself and we sort of lose track of things. There are 4 general classes that we spoke about this morning: commodities, cash and money equivalents, equities, and of course, investments with regular returns. And those are money instruments. It could be insurance, it could be endowments, it could be anything that fall along that line. So we talk about oil, we talk about gold, we talk about wheat and corn and coffee and all of those things. And all of those things are basically commodities. Now, when we are looking at commodities now, commodities fall into 3 major categories. Remember, a commodity is anything that produces goods and services that we, the consumer, use. If you're drinking your coffee this morning, your tea, you're having your orange juice, that's commodities. All right. So the first is agricultural commodities. The second category is the energy category, which deals with crude oil, natural gas, unleaded gasoline, heating oil. All of those things fall under the energy category of a commodity. And it's listed so as well on the exchange. And of course, the metals component, which is copper, gold, silver, platinum, etc. All of those are commodities as well. So commodities have 3 classifications. All right. We already looked at the cash money equivalents. The term cash refers to physical currency, coins. Well, in these days, coins aren't as valuable as before. And of course, in Trinidad and Tobago, I had attended a seminar with the central bank, and the coins have absolutely no value. It's now steel plated. So I don't know if it's steel plated where you are, but maybe you can type it in the box and tell me if your coin really represents any value. Coins issued in the last 10 years have absolutely no intrinsic value. Maybe in the last 20 years, it probably might have some copper and silver and whatnot, but coins represent no value. It actually just is like a claim check. It really absolutely has no value. It just is maybe an understood value from what central bank puts it out to be. Right? Your checking account, your petty cash savings account, money market accounts, etc. All of those fall under the cash scenario. Of course, we deal with equities. You hear the term all the time. It's really stocks, all right, and even bonds, which represent ownership in a company, but does not give you the right to run the company. All right, so that's something we need to represent. Bonds are a form of long-term debt. Governments are very much popular in raising that. That's when government wants to raise more liquidity within the system. So they will issue government bonds and that type of investment. Trinidad and Tobago recently, under the defunct CLICO, Colonial Life, has been, put into a new investment company, and they're now issuing bonds on top of that, because of the whole company going IPO, etc. For those who've been following up on that, maybe I might talk about it before the week is out. So you begin to understand that if they're offering government bonds, you need to pay attention, because the longer the government bonds are held by you, you are actually dealing with government risk. You're dealing with economic risk. You're dealing with exchange risk, because your currency is also in indirect play with regards to this. And that's something we need to talk about further down. And of course, regular returns, which could be a combination of stocks, bonds, ETFs, insurance, endowments, other forms of savings. All of those things fall into that category. So I trust that this morning's conversation on the One Academy would have actually helped you to open up your mind to a greater understanding. So you could go back to your manual. The level 1, guys, is so comprehensive that just doing the level 1 for many of us will put you in the top 3% of understanding. And that's why it's important that everyone must do the level 1. It is absolutely of paramount importance that every single one on this call, your friends, family, well-wishers, etc., need to be on this, need to understand the dynamics of level one so that you can have the right conversation. So when you go out there and you open your mouth and you're really giving people sound advice, because you're not trying to hustle anyone into buying a package. We're not hustlers. And I want you to understand that we are educators in this line of business. And you must feel confident reflecting that in everything that you do. So have yourself a super fabulous day. It's now 6:35 where I am. And of course, the time has come for me to say goodbye. For now, looking forward to tomorrow when we continue along this discussion. Hope you have a super fabulous day. And whatever this day brings to you, that you will look at it as a learning experience. Have yourself a great day, One Academites. Maureen, this call is back over to you.
Thank you, Larry, and thank you for that comprehensive discussion on commodities, cash, equities, investments. Thank you. We're going to have a few contributions, and I have noticed that I think this is the person, I'm not quite sure, but Jamal, I think he's the deal shaker person. So I want to hear from him some comment on this morning's read, as well as what One Life, the One Academy has done for him since he has started with us. Go ahead, Jamal. You're
Hi,
unmuted.
good morning, all. A pleasant good morning, Marine, and all who are from the distant lands. One Academy has sort of awakened me to a higher degree, of understanding. I've had an entrepreneurial background from since the age of 16, and I've had a wealth of experience in understanding how to, create opportunities by understanding and flipping commodities, as well as understanding that rental assets are important. And One Academy has also given me a further insight into a lot more. It's opened up my mind, and I can't stress how important it is for us to, be privy into these morning calls as they, so powerful and so valuable. And I want to urge people to continue coming on to the calls because, this is second to none what we are getting from the calls. And, I just want to say go out there and be entrepreneurs rather than, work for our money in terms of like a job and whatnot. Create that income for yourself. It'll work out to your best advantage. So that's my shining, and thank you very much for having me on the call.
You are welcome, Jamal. Thank you for that. I'd love to hear from Elizabeth Johnson. So I'm going to unmute your mic, Elizabeth, and you can shine in for us.
Good morning, Maureen. Good morning, fellow academites. Larry, excellent presentation this morning. I think I really like this new format where there is more in-depth explanation of the concepts, and I think certainly learning concepts is strengthened by examples. So I want to say congratulations on the new format and the delivery. I absolutely agree with your perspective that level one sets a very strong foundation and base, and it actually is important in every aspect of our lives, not only in promoting the packages. And there is a lot more benefit in actually implementing what these packages or what we're learning. One of my favorite financial advisors is Susie Orman, and because she actually explains, all of the different ways to protect your wealth and to build wealth in a very understandable format. So it is really not only good to know the information, but power comes from actually practicing what we learn. So with that, Maureen, I want to congratulate you as well on an excellent facilitatory role for these workshops in the morning. And I want to wish everyone a fantastic hump day. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I want to recognize our Diamond King James, who is here with us, as well as Sana Malika from Algeria. I noticed she doesn't have her audio there so that I can unmute her to hear from her. But I want to recognize you anyway. Good afternoon, I think it is, or evening where you are in that part of the world. I want to do that. And then before we bring King James on, I was looking at the time and think that I might be able to get one more person shining in this morning. Who should I? Okay, Victor Jofield. I'm going to unmute your mic. Go ahead, Victor.
Hello, good morning, Maureen. Are you hearing me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much for having me shine in on the call. Thank you very much, Larry, for the usual informative and educational output. The various asset classes that we all would have known before the One Academy, we realized that it was misinformation and that in real life, we need to diversify in various streams, asset classes, as you would have alluded to, so that whereas we thought that you have some a savings account, deposit account, insurance, and these things, and that is what was taught us in school, that we would have a varied, investment portfolio. We realize that it is total misinformation. So we are very thankful for the fact that we can now step up to a higher degree of learning, whereby we know about the various asset classes, we know about investments like cryptocurrency, we know about deviating to gold and precious metal, it is an integral part of the whole learning process. So we welcome the One Academy training every day. I encourage everyone to continue to plug in and to, continue to learn, to continue to eradicate the level of unconsciousness, and bring it to a level of competence, awareness. All right, so thank you very much once again for having me shine in. Do have a pleasant day, Maureen. Back to you.
Thank you, Victor. And last but not least, of course, our Diamond King James. I will unmute your mic for you to give the last contribution. Welcome, King James.
Hey, pleasant good morning, everyone. Such a privilege to be on this call this morning. I do want to start off by saying it really, really pays for us to be in this One Academy and to be in this learning profession. And I don't want to be too long this morning at all, but I want to make sure I say something. I was sitting out with a lovely young lady yesterday by the name of Daniela, who is just really amazing in the field and open up the mind to what One Academy could do, because she's an accountant by profession, a real big shot accountant. And the fact is, because we have this information earlier than most, earlier than people who understand it, there's so much you can do within to develop. Meaning, if you learn this information, you can now look into the aspect now. She could be the first accountant that's doing blockchain chartered accounting services. Not accounting, sorry, Not accountant. What's the person who does be checking out auditor?
Audit.
She's auditor, correct. So she could be doing blockchain audited services. And I told her you could create a whole school if you learn it and be able to pass on the information. So when I mentioned that idea, she got excited, extremely excited. But where did that idea come from? You see, I want us to understand that we are promoting the number one university in the world, pun intended, one university in the world. This One Academy University, friends, we need to be proud, and we need to take a whole different turn and look at who we are. If you are called a recruiter, don't be ashamed. Because the last I checked, it have people who recruit for Duke University, you have people who recruit for Oxford, for Constantine, for numerous different universities across the world. And they are paid to go out there and recruit. They have a market which is normally high schoolers, but they also recruit all different kind of undergrad classes, and they recruit overall. Their whole goal and mission is to get people to come to their university, of course saying what their university have to offer and why they're so great. So if people jobs are to go out there and recruit for universities, and our main objective really is to recruit for this One Academy University, what is the problem with being called a recruiter? See it for what it is. See who you are. See the paradigm shift that you are helping with the level of education that we have to offer. And understand that I am a proud One Academy recruiter. Guys, I want to leave you with that thought, man. I want you to also know that you have to go out there on a daily basis, starting from today, and become a proud One Academy recruiter. Let's get persons started in the organization. Let's get people to open up the understanding to the asset classes, the concept of asset, the concept of commodity. Imagine actual currency becoming a commodity. That is the best merger of both worlds, friend. Commodity that is usable on a daily basis, that is money, a currency. Wow, the characteristics that it has, with the fact that your own currency in your own hand has the opportunity to increase in value with the more usability. So understand why you're recruiting for the One Academy, you're also increasing the commodity that you have in your ones. Friends, this is nothing short of really brain racking, amazing, and a sensational opportunity at hand. Tomorrow, I'll touch a little bit on helping you understand what percentage of the 595% you have a chance to be. Guys, pleasant good day to you all, man. See you at the top.
Thank you so much, King James. And I just wanted to share two things that were put in the chat early. Dwayne has said to us, do we wait until we have billions to have a billionaire mentality? No, we're not. That's why we're on the One Academy. We're changing our thinking. And then Jamal wants to say a blessed day to all of you lovely entrepreneurs and One Academy family. So I like that, Jamal. Thank you for calling everyone entrepreneurs, because even if you don't feel like one today, remember you are on your way. We are on a journey to becoming wise and knowledgeable investors. We're learning today so we can lead tomorrow. You are educators, you are recruiters, so you're going to go out there today and you are going to speak to at least one person. At least, but I know you will do more. So thank you once again for being on the calls, for making the sacrifice. Thank you. We appreciate you. We look forward to being with you tomorrow morning. Have a wonderful, a great, and blessed One Life day.
One Academy is the heart of our company. Cryptocurrency is not an easy product. It's a very innovative product based on technology and based on very, very complex concepts. For us to be part of this financial revolution, to be part of cryptocurrency and of a community, we need to understand exactly what we do and what we talk about. And this is why we have the One Academy. The One Academy provides you with concepts, provides you with explanation on cryptocurrency and on the financial world. I would encourage everybody to join the courses, to do the certificates, and to understand thoroughly how to use cryptocurrency, what cryptocurrency is, and how we can change the world by using cryptocurrency. One Academy. Learn today, lead tomorrow.